Почитувани представници на медиумите, следува заедничката пресконференција на
Today's press conference of the Prime Minister of the Government of North Macedonia, Kovachevski, and Prime Minister of the Government of Albania, Rama. First, we will hear from the President of the Government of North Macedonia. Thank you. Distinguished citizens of the Republic of North Macedonia, distinguished citizens of the Republic of Albania, distinguished representatives of the governments of both countries, distinguished Ambassador Markovski, distinguished Ambassador Yeka, distinguished Prime Minister Rama, distinguished representatives of the media. Thank you for today's presence at this press conference following the second intergovernmental session between North Macedonia and Albania. It is my honor to host today my dear friend Edi. It is my honor that the government hosted the government of Albania. As I said in my introductory remarks, we have communicated with Edi so often. That is, our cooperation is so tight between our ministries and the institutions. I today have the feeling that today we're all here as at home. Both Edi and I are strongly determined, politically determined, to develop and to cooperate. We both showed what courageous and responsible leadership based on European values means, and that is why North Macedonia and Albania today are together on the European path. Here I would like, before the whole Macedonian Albanian public, to extend my appreciation to Edi and to Albania for their support they have been providing in the past period, especially this summer, while sitting at the political table in Brussels, negotiating to commence the well-deserved negotiations. Even when we said no and we said yes, although it was not easy, you, Edi, and your delegation gave your overall support to North Macedonia. Some did not believe, but here are we today, both countries negotiating and moving fast on the European path. Friends are now in trouble, and here on the Balkan we face many difficulties, and that is why it is good to have friends as Albania. It is clear that together we can do a lot more, and that is why I will personally remember and appreciate this support forever. North Macedonia and Albania are a true example for building good neighborly relations. In key moments for the world, we are jointly contributing to peace and stability on the Western Balkan and thus in Europe. Today, we are overcoming the challenges arising from the global economic and energy crisis as equal members of NATO and partners of the US within the Open Balkan Initiative, within the Berlin process, and through enhancing the bilateral relations. Today, we are laying the foundations for further development of our two countries while jointly taking the European path, for making our countries a better place for living, to confirm that we are committed, devoted, and to give hope that we'll have a better tomorrow. We will come out from this crisis together, and no one will be left alone. It is easy to speak of past and for what divides us, but to speak of development, the future, of providing the European standard in life at home, this requires work, it requires commitment, vision, and leadership. And we have this. And that is why I'm convinced that we will succeed for all the citizens of both our countries to provide support to overcome this difficult winter and to promise that next year it will be better and a little bit easier. Today's second session between the governments of North Macedonia and Albania is a proof of our efforts. This session is here in Skopje, devoted to concrete solutions for ongoing issues for the citizens and for the countries. The intergovernmental session was completed just now after what we signed several memorandums enhancing the cooperation in almost all fields, especially focusing on energy, because the focus of the world is on the energy. In order to secure stable and sustainable energy sources, we signed memorandum of cooperation in this energy field. In this way, we are creating a framework for preparation and realization of energy projects that mainly refer to infrastructure for natural gas and renewable energies. Today, but also in the future period, we have the unique opportunity to move the energy transformation that we started. With good vision, we as a country have already been investing in industries of the future that will provide us energy independence. They will open possibility for more and better paid jobs for the citizens. As I said, this crisis is an opportunity for us to innovate, to develop. It is an opportunity to turn the country into a hub of green energy that in future, with good plans and strategy, can supply the region but also the continent with energy from renewable sources. North Macedonia has its resources. It has sun, water, fertile soil. Our obligation is to make use of these resources reasonably and to secure better future for our citizens. And this is something that is truly valuable to think, but also to undertake concrete steps. Of course, this will contribute to another important aspect for the quality of life of the citizens, but also the economic development, where connection of the countries is of essential importance. That is why today we signed the Memorandum of Understanding for Development of the Road Infrastructure between both countries. Through this memorandum, we enhance our shared efforts to construct and to complete the road infrastructure regarding Corridor 8 in order to connect the whole Corridor 8 by 2030. What we are doing today to us as countries and as a region will make us more attractive for foreign investors. And in the end, this will mean new factories, new well-paid jobs. It will mean that our young people will remain here at home to work, to build their future, and to further develop what we are starting today. The other memoranda that we signed today referred to deepening of the cooperation between the two countries for several important issues. You already had the occasion to attend the signing of all the agreements and memoranda. What I want to underline that among the things we did today is another concrete proof for our good development and cooperation of mutual trust. This is the agreement for restoration of the illegally transferred icons from our country in 2013. These icons are fruit of the rich domestic tradition of the 19th century, and they are a significant part of the national cultural heritage. And after the completion of the criminal procedure led by the courts in Tirana, through today's agreement, we will start a procedure for their physical return to the country. I had a meeting with the Archbishop of the Macedonian Orthodox Church, Stefan, and I promised him, just as I promised him that I will work on the recognition and the introduction into the canonic unity of the Macedonian Orthodox Church with all other Orthodox churches. I did that, and I also promised him that I will personally go to Albania and I will restore the 21 icons that are located there. That is why I want to extend my personal appreciation to Edi Rama, who together with his Minister of Culture, who worked together with our Minister of Culture, Bisera Kostadinovska-Stojčevska, did this. We accomplished this, and today everyone could see one of these icons here in Skopje, and very soon, in the next few days, all these icons will be returned to Skopje, will be given to the Archbishop of the Macedonian Orthodox Church, so that all of our Orthodox believers from the country, from the region, but all the other believers from other religions, to enjoy this heritage that North Macedonia has. This second intergovernmental session is a continuity of what was agreed on the first intergovernmental session that took place in Podgradec, Albania. As of then, we improved our cooperation within the Open Balkan Initiative and the Berlin process through mutual assistance and support in tackling the consequences of the economic energy crisis. The European Union sees our efforts for economic development and has finally understood that it is in its strategic security interest for the Western Balkan to be part of Europe, that the countries from the Western Balkan have democratic, progressive leaderships, and that now it is the time to complete the European family. This momentum of a hand given from our partners should not be missed by us. Both we and the European Union have delivered and will continue to do so. The opening of the negotiations and commencement of the screening process is an excellent success for all of us. In that regard, the recognition from Europe for the Macedonian identity and the Macedonian language was utterly important. The negotiations were painful and difficult, but we succeeded in achieving what we were fighting for. Not only we protected the Macedonian identity and the Macedonian language, but we raised it on the same level, on the equal footing with the remaining languages of the European Union. A proof of this promise was the signing of the Frontex Agreement as a first agreement of such kind, which we signed together with all the other 27 member states into Macedonian language without any additions or footnotes. We are seen as successful multi-ethnic functional democracy of equal citizens, Macedonians, Albanians, Turks, Serbs, Vlachs, Roma, Bosniaks, and all the others who live here. We are a successful and confirmed model of a little Europe. This opened the opportunity for us as a country to accede to accomplishing all other necessary steps following in the Assembly in order, in a dynamic process, to complete the accession negotiations with the EU by 2030. There is no more space for justification that would stall the process of the European integrations of our country. In that regard, I expect all the members of the Parliament to stand up to the task, to show responsibility in the Assembly, and to continue to move fast towards the EU. The EU membership is a strategic objective of the Republic of North Macedonia as well as of the Republic of Albania. We started together the screening process. We have together the opportunity to complete the negotiations and to become full-fledged members of the Union. In the very end, I would like to express my gratitude for the great friendly support from the Republic of Albania in our NATO accession. This is another point of connectivity between our two countries, as well as the care for the citizens Albanians in North Macedonia and the citizens Macedonians in Albania. I'm glad that we share this together with the citizens as a product of this intergovernmental session, and it is a field of open opportunities to progress together to accomplish our shared strategic goal, full-fledged membership into the European Union. Thank you. Thanks to Prime Minister Rama and to all the ministers in the government of Albania who were present here today with us. Thank you. Thank you, Prime Minister. Now I would like to call the Prime Minister of Albania, Mr. Rama, to address you. Thank you. Thank you, dear Dimitar. Distinguished Prime Minister, we had a productive session. We finalized 21 agreements, memoranda, that were agreed in an interactive and intensive process as an organic part of our governments. Governments that are interacting continuously, but at the same time, we agreed on 3 proposed initiatives by the first Deputy President of the government, Artan Grubi, that refer directly to construction of road infrastructure, the Corridor 8, construction of the dry port in Struga, and the opening of a new border crossing, Pogradec-Struga. All these new proposals are a great strategic objective, and we agreed when it comes to the project. The previous project of the dry port to take under our obligation within the agreement that we have with the well-known Dutch company Rolhaus Koning that has designed the new commercial port combined with the military zone of Durs and the dry port in Pristina. In this way, I believe that we are creating a complex infrastructure that will serve the increase of the volume of interaction of our countries. That was our priority. It was priority of the Open Balkan Initiative, but also of the Berlin process. We all remember that there was a challenging moment for the whole Europe, for the whole West, because we're part of it, although we have not started the war in Ukraine, we cannot stop this war, yet we are victims of it. We suffer the consequences. And in my opinion, I think that this was envisaged as a war with absurd territorial pretext, and it should put the whole Western world to its knees. The prices of electricity are growing, also the inflation. These are types of weapon that is used by Putin to destabilize Europe, and all the events surrounding Europe, all the countries surrounding Europe, no matter whether they are members or not. We are facing difficulties that all of us together in these difficult times the principle of joint work is proving to be true. We should look into our future. We should share our vision, and then only in that way can we face the complex situations that impact all of us. I'm glad that with North Macedonia we have set some strong foundation for building a shared future that will maintain the mutual respect, the respect for freedoms, but also a healthy future for the generations to come. Today, before the EU summit with the Western Balkan countries, the first summit that will take place in the history of the EU in our region, the summit will take place in Tirana. We're very well aware that this is an opportunity to underline the strength of the support, but also to present our needs, not only as needs that need to be fulfilled for us, but needs that need to be fulfilled for a certain condition, for this shared front where we will all try to consolidate our forces. Regarding the aspect of our bilateral relations, they have never been better. These are relations that deliver results. The Open Balkan Initiative proved its importance in numbers. It is sufficient to see the export and import between the two countries to see that there is growth that goes beyond the trend of export and import in the recent years. And this is, to me, is an important sign of the potential that we own, that we possess to further develop our relations in the interest of both countries. Today, we are together here for the first time as countries that negotiate for EU membership after a long and difficult period where fate wanted us to connect in our pain for the love of Europe and the lack of interest of Europe in us. And today we are in another phase, a phase that will not be easy, but it will be a new one. It will be a phase that will finally confirm that our countries should be part of the United European family. This confirmation comes thanks to the work, to the commitment, and to the results to our resolution to marry willingly or with less will with our partner from the European Union. Thank you very much. I'm ready to answer your questions. This is very important. We went through the most important, so please go ahead. Citel TV.
I have a question to the guest and to our PM. Mr. Rama, in Brussels, the two delegations and two governments were present, and we have started a negotiation process, but Macedonia is facing constitutional changes that are an obstacle to the road to the membership. If this does not happen, is Albania going to continue towards the Euro integration and EU membership? And to our PM, you have called upon the MPs today a couple of times and to finish the constitutional changes that are on the way to, that are an obstacle to our way to EU. But on the other hand, we are facing the situation that we don't have sufficient members that are going to vote for this. Is it the case? We have together made an effort. Albania and North Macedonia, the fate of the two countries is to connect together in the pain in a relatively long period of time and a very difficult period for you as well, to be recognized, to recognize the right to start the negotiating process for the EU membership. For you, it was much more difficult due to the very well-known reasons. For us, it was not an easy process either. Therefore, the changes for North Macedonia I consider that only the weakness and shut eyes, not wide open eyes, can be the reason why we should have misunderstandings. But if there are any other problems that will occur for this country or this country will face, of course, we all have the right to run, to chase the time. Because as far as I know, your constitution has a large number of minorities that are included into the constitution, and this is a model that is very well known of. It's not something that was just invented with regards to the other constitutions that exist in our planet. This is a very simple process. I don't know if it's going to be helpful. I want to mention in this regard that we have a different model for the constitution in our country, in Albania. But in the parliament, we recognize not a small number of minorities, including the Bulgarian minority. They are present, modestly present, but they exist in Albania, and I do not consider that this minority, any minority, would be a threat. I consider the minorities our wealth, and they are very important in the key moments. It is in our interest, not in their interest, for them to feel as they're at home and that they feel they are not treated any differently with regards to the other or compared to the other citizens, the Albanian nationality, citizens of Albanian nationality. I believe that the people here are much smarter than the politicians worldwide, and I consider that we are not going to forget what was happening under the quotes of patriotism when they are searching for a situation of keeping Macedonia as a hostage. I consider that we cannot make any steps towards the new era and then go back in the previous era. I consider that North Macedonia is not going to go back in the past and self-isolate. This is something that is incomprehensible, since Macedonia has a pride, and we all witnessed this on international level. There is a great respect on international level and a conviction that significant efforts were made with regards to the Euro-Atlantic road, which is very meaningful for both the economy, social development, and all internal processes. Thus, maybe I have spoke a little bit more about this, but I consider it's going to be very unconstructive and fatal to go back, to be trapped back in the history. What is past is in the past, and it should not pose any threat or a problem, the fact that you have a large number of minorities included in your constitution. This is very significant and nobody should be left aside. Thank you for your question. I will try to give an answer to both your questions as a whole. It was not easy to make the decisions that North Macedonia has made in the past 5 years, but when you have a difficult decision to make ahead of you, then you have a choice. You either leave the things as they were, or as we have seen, they have been for 11 years, not 1 millimeter was made forward in the Euro-Atlantic path, or you make a decision that is going to enable the future generations, that is going to give the future generations better future in the way, in the path towards the EU membership. There are no citizens in our country that is not going to tell you that the objective is for the North Macedonia to become a full member state of the EU, not only because of the membership, but for better living, standard of living, for better judicial system, better services for the citizens, for better life in general. And when you're making this kind of decisions, you have in front of you a choice whether your citizens, this generation and the future generations, will this right and this wish for rights and economic rights and freedoms, whether they will establish this in a EU member state but abroad, or EU member state in their own country. I have made this choice, and my choice was that our future generations should do this in their country, Macedonia, North Macedonia, as EU member state. On the other hand, after making this difficult decision, which both me and the ministers accompanying me in the negotiations had a very clear objective: starting of the membership negotiations, holding of the governmental session, which took place, starting of the screening process, which already started, preserving the Macedonian language, which was confirmed by the signing of the agreement with Frontex. We signed this agreement in Skopje in clear Macedonian language without any additions, footnotes, supplements, etc. Macedonian identity protected and raised to the level of all the identities of the languages of the EU member states with all its features. We have achieved this. Historical issues that are the work of the Historical Commission. So we are very aware that the historical questions are something that the Historic Commission should deal with. We witnessed this. After we have started the screening and we started the discussion for the constitutional amendments, I have been thinking a lot about this, and I came to a conclusion, which is very important. This is that the true threat for the continuation of the European path of our country is coming from a single political party which in its program is opposing the European Union, the membership to the EU, the integration of our country to the Berlin process and open Balkan. And this political party is Levica and its president Apasiev. Furthermore, even greater threat is that this party is taking as a hostage the president of VMRO DPMNE and the party, because this is a weak individual without any position or vision. Anyone without vision or position and determination is very easily a target to be taken into hostage. This is what is happening at the moment to the Macedonian opposition. I consider that in this political, for this kind of political pyroman, should not be allowed to cut the European road of the country. Regarding the question whether the government has 80 MPs for the constitutional changes, these constitutional changes are exactly for continuation of the European path of the country. Now it depends only on us. It's up to us. It's in our hands. It depends on the 120 MPs. And if you ask me if we have enough number, if we have sufficient number, we have 120 MPs, not 80, not 90 or 100 or 110. We have 120 MPs that are all responsible, not to me, not in front of me or to the government. They have the responsibility in front of their children, the children of their friends, of their relatives, to make a decision that is going to provide a future for them, a future that will mean EU membership. I know that this is not going to be an easy path, just like it's not going to be easy for Macedonia, it's not going to be easy for Albania either. This is a negotiating process, a path of changing the society towards bettering the society. But at the end of every difficult path, we will come to the big reward, which is the full membership into the EU. This award is for our citizens, for the future generations to live in a better country, to have proud Macedonians and every citizen of this country to step with a head held high, speak in their own Macedonian language, and to be at the same time EU member state citizens to be richer than we are today. Therefore, I consider that our parliament has the capacity to make the decision that is going to continue the European path of the country, and is not going to be the reason or the cause to go back 2 steps or 3 steps back into the history, to the uncertainty and isolation, and the time when we didn't know what every next day will bring. I'm aware that our MPs are going to make a decision that is going to be both for the citizens and for the institution. It is going to give a clear vision that Macedonia is going to where it belongs. Thank you.
Radio TV of Albania for both prime ministers. What are the priority infrastructure projects that you want to apply within the EU, and how the 2 countries will overcome this world energy crisis? I would like to hear your views regarding Serbia and Kosovo, having in mind that Serbia is an open Balkan member. Thank you. Thank you for the question. First of all, both Albania and North Macedonia and Serbia have proven that joint cooperation helps us to overcome the problems much easier than when dealing individually with these problems. There was no better confirmation from what happened in the past winter. There was no better confirmation when the countries faced prohibitions for export of food, and Serbia lifted the ban for exports of grain, and when we lifted the ban for export of cooking oil for Albania. And these decisions did not require long meetings, nor governmental sessions, nor conferences. It was sufficient to make a phone call, for me to call the president of Serbia, or for the prime minister of Albania to call me, and decisions were made at the very second. Because if a region wants to progress and to become an example for cohabitation and for cooperation, then the heads of the states and governments must mutually respect themselves. They need to know that their mutual respect is, in fact, the respect that all the citizens of the countries will have between themselves. The same refers to all the other areas. Regarding the infrastructure, it is of key importance to connect the Corridor 8. You know that we are a region that went through great social turmoils. We were part of a socialist system. You were part of an even more expressed communist system. And the cooperation between the countries in this region, especially regarding the regional infrastructural connectivity, was probably the worst throughout Europe, because at that time the countries did not have the policy of cooperation. But on the contrary, they had the approach of building borders, bunkers, and not roads and infrastructures, because they were afraid of each other. And that is why our government decided to fully construct the new Corridor 8 towards Albania with modern highway solutions, and also construction of express roads towards Bulgaria and railway to Bulgaria. The railway also refers to the Albanian part. This Corridor 8 has never been part of the strategic corridors of the EU, and it was also not part because no one spoke about it, because no one represented this corridor, because this region was in quarrels. It did not communicate. Only 30 years ago, this region was bursting with weapons and not with friendships as we have today. But when Edi Rama and I and Prime Minister Donev of Bulgaria will go to Brussels and we will speak of the importance of Corridor 8, we'll speak of the importance of the connection between Burgas, Skopje, Durs, and ahead, Italy, Montenegro, Austria, Croatia, then everyone will understand the importance and the significance of Corridor 8. Regarding the cooperation in other fields, I'm glad that what we signed in Berlin for the Berlin process, we have already signed within the Open Balkan Initiative. Open Balkans should not present some kind of threat for no one. It is an original idea, not only of the politicians, but also of the business community and the citizens of North Macedonia, Albania, and Serbia. Why? Because if we take a look, when going north from Serbia, when going west from Serbia to Croatia, there are no borders. The only borders remaining are the borders on the Balkans. Borders between North Macedonia and Albania, North Macedonia and Kosovo, borders between North Macedonia and Serbia. We do not need these borders. We proved today with Edi Rama, we have been proving with Aleksandar Vučić, with Bulgaria, and with Mitsotakis, that we do not need these borders. Why? Because the people who live here are brothers. The politics made them not to live with each other, but today we are working on losing these borders, of making these people feel like at home in any of the Western Balkan countries. This is my answer to your question. I would not like to repeat myself or to repeat Prime Minister Kovachevski. He gave a great response. And regarding the trust, we decided not to overcome the price of the energy for the families or for the small businesses. This is a great expense for the budget. And we decided to face this. We decided not to allow this weapon created intentionally by Vladimir Putin to further stress and torture the citizens of whole Europe. We do not want it to be functional. We want to neutralize it regarding the families and the small businesses. And at the same time, this year, according to the statistical information, has brought a lot of drought in the past 100 years, and it creates even greater difficulties. However, we want to compensate between our hydro capacities and the needs, and we want to create new capacities with the solar energy and the hydro energy with Skalica, as well as with the liquid gas. And in this aspect, we have numerous partnerships that have been published and announced. And there are some partners that will be announced very soon. We spoke with the Prime Minister in that line, and we are very much convinced that each day, not each year, but each day, unity is strength. And for our countries from the Balkan, I can say that we have no need of dealing with the past, because the future is already difficult and hazardous for us, and we need to prepare for this period that lies ahead. We need to learn how to live in a world of global threats, and we will overcome this through synergy, by working together to have more shared mechanisms in the area of energy, food, infrastructure, and in all other areas. This is something that I wanted to add. And another thing, we are preparing another Open Balkan Summit in Albania. And we are very much satisfied that now we have other countries that want to be an integral part of this process, no matter the fact that our three countries are the foundation of the Open Balkan. I also consider Greece, Turkey, Hungary, Italy. I want to take into consideration all the countries that were present at the beginning in the summit that took place previously and that now want to also be part of the next summit, so that we can create the very much needed synergy with the borders surrounding us. The synergies that and borders that were mentioned by Dimitar also. I feel quite good, and we have already discussed and we have proven that Open Balkan is in fact moving up the Berlin process, what we signed in Berlin and what was signed previously by us, because the Open Balkan agreements are in fact accelerating the Berlin process. Shared question for both prime ministers of the governments. On November the 3rd, with the support of the German Chancellor, we had an awakening of the Berlin process. You, together with Kovachevski and the President of Serbia, Mr. Vučić, signed the agreements previously in Open Balkan, and now they were signed in Berlin by 6 countries. And other countries are still not part in terms when the same agreements are signed in the Berlin process. And should this process continue in future? Yes, it is worth to be continued, because in that way we are changing the positions between the leaders and the followers. The Berlin process is a leader that has the leaders from the region behind it. It takes them on a new road. And in the very end, the Berlin process changes the relations. However, the process goes ahead. And we cannot expect anything compared to what we have done so far, and the Berlin process is strengthening. I think that the Berlin process is open, but it is not a lifetime process, whereas the Open Balkan Initiative is a lifelong process. I think that it will last much more, so we must take this into consideration. Yes, thank you. Open Balkan and the Berlin process are not mutually opposed to each other. On the contrary, they are 2 compatible processes, because countries that are members of the Berlin process are also members of the Berlin process. And if we take a look into the agreements that we signed at the Berlin process, these are identical agreements that have already been signed by our 3 countries and ratified by them. The Berlin process is irreversible. It is a process that leads towards full integration of the Western Balkan into the common European market. The foundations of the Open Balkan are the 4 freedoms of the European Union. And another important fact for the progress of Albania and North Macedonia in their development, especially regarding the creation of security, stability, and safety, and political relations with its neighbors, is the fact that the following Open Balkan Summit will take place in Tirana very soon, and the agreements that were signed in Berlin were deposited in North Macedonia. The agreements signed in Berlin are deposited in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. You're much younger than me, but if you look 30 years before and see the starting point of North Macedonia, Macedonia at that time, and Albania, and what we have achieved now after the great decisions we have made, then you will see that in Albania we'll have an Open Balkan Summit, and in North Macedonia, in its Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the ministry will safeguard the agreements of the 6 members of Western Balkans, and that is why I think that this is a great success. Last question. I have a question to Prime Minister Kovachevski. The question maybe goes beyond the topic with Albania, but we are a NATO member state and we are striving to become a full-fledged EU member state. I would like to ask you who will take the liability for the scandal Uniščenko and whether Viktor Dimovski will be recalled. He should be an ambassador. So I would like to reiterate the statement that I already gave, identical to the statement of the Ministry of the Interior. The government is making its decisions based on opinions submitted by institutions that participate in the decision-making processes. When awarding the citizenship that you're asking me about, all positive opinions were submitted by all institutions that are assigned for these processes. And based on these positive opinions, the ministers, of course, provide their positive or negative opinion, and in this case, having in mind that all documents were assessed positively by all institutions, positive opinion and decision was made. Regarding the process of getting to these positive opinions, I already asked some of the institutions to submit their reports so that we can see whether the procedure was conducted as it should. Because you know that all the ministers, even prime ministers of the government, cannot know all the details about the procedures. 4 institutions were involved in the decision-making process, so I expect that this report will be submitted to the government so that we can see how these opinions were made. And regarding the director of the Agency for National Security and proposed ambassador who will represent our country in France, it is best to give this question to the Commission for Foreign Affairs within the Assembly, led by the opposition, even more transparent and more accountable, and that is why I invite the President of the Commission of Foreign Affairs to convene a session of the Commission where the Director of the Agency of National Security and proposed ambassador to France can give his answers to these questions. Thank you. Distinguished guests, this would be the end of today's press conference. Thank you for your attention and goodbye.
За се првашкот проштитот dy kryeministra. Faleminderit për momentin. Ditën e mirë.
Faleminderit shumë.